So what we're going to learn today is an introduction to the Our Water, Our World program, to those of you who aren't familiar already. We'll talk about the principles of integrated pest management, IPM. We're going to talk about how to identify these different environments, the moles, voles, and gophers, and how to manage them with integrated pest management strategies, how to work with traps, barriers, repellents, beneficial nematodes, and other tools. And then, of course, we'll have questions at the end. So the Our Water, Our World program is a program designed to bring awareness between pesticides and water quality and provide pest problem solving education. Our Water, Our World partners with retailers and counties across the Bay Area and beyond to provide information in store through fact sheets like that photo on the left, free information for people to take home. We educate the associates so they can best assist you as well. Then also there is on the shelves, there will be blue tags. In some stores, there's blue tags that highlight the eco-friendly products on the shelf. And then there's also the Our Water World website, which has all the fact sheets and information about water quality. And in some stores, we also have posters that have QR codes that you can scan and bring those fact sheets and other information right up on your phone as well. So a little bit about integrated pest management, which is what we talk about at Our Water, Our World. It is a holistic view, or it's a holistic way, a holistic approach, excuse me, to pest management. It's really taking a step back, making decisions, asking questions, and looking at the big picture before we take action. We focus on science-based strategies always. And again, we're looking at the garden as a whole system. It's an ecosystem. Some of the questions we ask are, what is the problem at hand? And that's really because a lot of times when we see problems with our plant, those are symptoms of another, those could be symptoms of a different problem. So we want to really know what we're dealing with. Is it a pest? Is it a watering problem? Is it a fertilizing problem? And what pest is it, of course? So, and then another question, which I'm sure will come up today, is can we live with it? Some pest problems are short-lived and they'll go away quickly and won't cause a lot of damage. Some pests are, in some people's minds, are more of a nuisance. And some people, can't stand the sight of ants no matter what, for example. So I'll ask a lot of, can we live with it? Is it a problem? Is it just a nuisance? I know today with varmints, there's going to be, we're going to have to ask ourselves if we can live, what we can live with, figuring out where that line is. And then the steps of integrated pest management, always with prevention first. We put a lot of things in place ahead of pests arriving to prevent them and to make them easier to manage. Then identification. Always wanted to understand what we're looking at, what the problem is, what kind of pest is it? Is it a good bug or a bad bug? What kind of rodent it might be? Those are all going to help us best take action steps, most effective action and most effective and eco-friendly action steps. Then when we decide we do want to take action, there are 4 kinds of steps or controls in integrated pest management. There's cultural controls, which is really focusing on the health of the garden, making sure plants are healthy, setting up our garden to be the best environment for our plants and a less good environment for pests. Then there's mechanical controls, which are traps, barriers, tools, physical things we can use in the garden. Then there's biological controls, which are beneficial insects and other organisms in the world that support the ecosystem and create balance. And then always as a last resort, sometimes people don't take this 4th step, but if we've exhausted all the other action steps and we still are having problems and we want to go forward with chemical controls, we can choose a pesticide, always the most eco-friendly as possible, and using it very sparingly and appropriately. So IPM for varmints, this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to focus a lot on prevention, what we can do ahead of time, because I hate to say it, if you don't have gophers yet, you will in the Bay, if you're in the Bay Area, that is. So prevention and then exclusion, physical exclusion, and then elimination, how the best way to eliminate these pests.
All right, so I just want to start with a little warning here, just because we are discussing pest management for varmints. So there will be discussion about eliminating these pests. Responsible elimination is to be done always in the most humane way. So let's start by proper identification. As Charlotte said, if we're not able to identify what the pest is, it's going to be really challenging to try to resolve that problem or mitigate that problem. So voles, picture on the left, voles typically are going to create a very clean tunneling system. It's a very clean hole. It's usually just about, I'd say maybe 1.5 to 2 inches in diameter. Sometimes it could be a little smaller, sometimes a little larger, but it's very clean. And oftentimes we see multiple holes kind of within the same area. So these are entrances to their burrowing systems. Mole, picture in the middle, what we typically see evidence of mole activity is going to be a dirt pile or a mole mound. Don't make a mountain out of a molehill, right? We've always heard that. So this is a very good picture, or I should say this is very normal. This is normally what we see as a mole mound. It's pretty, circular. It looks almost like a volcano. A volcano of dirt has been pushed up. And then the gopher hole or mound, the gopher activity is not always as clear or as evident as this one. The picture on the right is going to show this nice crescent kind of shape, almost like a kidney bean shape. And then in the middle of the left side, there's almost like a plug. Okay, there's a little indentation, that's a plug. That is very true and evident of a gopher mound, is that plug. Sometimes the dirt that comes out is not going to be as kidney shaped or as fanned out. So if we could see that plug, that's going to really let you know that it's a gopher. And it's really important to understand what we're up against, because we would really, the types of actions we take for each of these pests or these critters is going to be quite different. So let's start talking about voles. Okay, so voles, they create these very clear holes to their burrowing system, and they they're very active. They will create these little surface runways. And what we see is oftentimes in grassy areas or areas that have a lot of plant material. Because they know that they're prey, they like to stay hidden. This grassy area below with the felcos was just recently mowed, and that's why we're able to capture this photo so easily. They are, just think, V for vegetarians. Okay, they're going to eat plant material. They're eating grasses and tree bark, roots, tubers, vegetable plants, anything that they can kind of access at this ground level. They're not really good at climbing. They really just want to access, they're really looking at stuff that they're right at their kind of eye level. So that's really what we're up against. It's like a field mouse. Okay, so that's what I like to think about. Maybe a little larger than a field mouse. I mean, I think they're pretty cute. I'm not so freaked out by them, unlike some of the other critters we see out there. And some of the best ways to manage voles is, one, mow the area. So when we can mow the area, mow our gardens, or really keep our gardens a little bit cleaner, I guess, or just trimmed, because that's a better word, and remove any types of piles of like brush or debris, stacks of wood, things like that. We want to dismantle that. Secure our compost stations, secure any area that if we do have like an outdoor where we put a lot of plant debris or garden litter, so to speak, we can just fence that off with the 1/4-inch hardware cloth or similar, okay? Some type of fencing to prevent them from accessing it. From there, we are going to really just use the tried and true. I'm not really one to name brand names, but these Victor traps are the best for vole management. They're lightweight, they're easy to set, they're very effective. They have this yellow kind of, looks like it's supposed to be a piece of Swiss cheese. That paddle, because it's so broad, is really what we're going for. Those voles will run right over it, and that's how they get snapped. So it's not easy to see at the picture below in the middle with the two traps, but it's a trap with the trigger side facing the tunnel, the entrance of their burrow. There's one on either side of the runway. And down below in the lower left, of course, it's just out in the field. There's a trap that's placed along the runway. Now, I would also share that a couple red flags with these pictures is that we're not seeing any protection from wildlife. So if a cat or dog or anything came over and was just kind of curious, they could get snapped very easily. So that's something we always want to be really mindful of, is that we want to make sure there are no unintended consequences, and really we're only going to get the voles that we're trying to capture. Overall, I would say on the, big picture, voles are probably very low on the problem list. There are years that there's bigger or more active voles or larger populations of voles, but they are food for a lot of our surrounding wildlife. So typically those are just, there are just those years, those seasons where we see higher vole activity than others.
Hey, Suzanne, sorry.
Yes.
What would you recommend for covering a trap to protect it from birds or otherwise?
I would use a milk crate, or even a shoebox that has holes cut on both sides so they could still run through their tunnel. I have a couple pictures in a minute when we talk about gopher traps. So that's a good question. I realized when I was talking about it, I was like, oh, I don't have a picture of that. So thanks for asking. Now let's just talk about moles. Moles, on the other hand, meat eaters. Okay, so V for voles, they are vegetarians. M for moles, they eat insects and other soil dwelling larvae and things like that. And here's that side view of the mole mounds. They do tunnel, they make very shallow tunnels. They tunnel very shallowly. So they're really only a couple inches below the surface of the soil. I apologize. The picture on the left, I'm sorry, the right doesn't really come up very clear, but it's almost like the volcanic byway where you can see like almost a path from one mole mound, a little bit of a path to another mole mound, to another mole mound, and so forth. Use your imagination. It's not always easy to get photos outside, with the sunlight, but they can really do some substantial damage to a lawn. I've seen a lot of clients that have like more larger properties with these nice, beautiful lawns. And really, it doesn't take long, pretty much a day or two, and those lawns are wrecked. But what I can say is that I personally find moles to be quite beneficial because they are eating these pest insects. They can eat up to 100 times their weight, their body weight in earthworms, white grubs, beetles, and other soil dwelling larvae. So though they might wreck a lawn, they can actually do a tremendous good for us. They're providing a really great service. And something else I can share is that with the current state of affairs and water wise gardening practices, it is nice now to consider just reducing the size of the lawn. So that's something we can also look at, is having a little bit of tolerance for the moles and maybe changing the environment so that it would not favor them as much. What we find is that there are a lot of beetles that will lay their eggs in the soil. Those eggs hatch, the larva will overwinter in the soil or spend some time during that larval stage before they emerge as an adult. So that is what's going on. Those moles are just looking for the food that was naturally there and is going to typically be more abundant in lawn and turf areas. So if we remove the food source, we can reduce or eliminate the mole activity. So this is the cool thing about moles, is when we remove the food source, and we do that with beneficial nematodes, we have removed the moles. So beneficial nematodes are sold widely at our independent garden centers, such as Sloat. And I will share that we're really about to be perfect time. So we had a cold spell. We're about to move into spring, as Jen mentioned, and March, as those temperatures, as the soil temperatures warm, is the ideal time to apply beneficial nematodes. A lot of times people are a little suspicious about the beneficial nematodes because they're, it's like, wow, there's a box for $20 or $25. Do they really work? I don't see them. It just seems really abstract and strange. But let me share that Mother Nature is very much on target. And these would be naturally occurring in soils that are not cultivated or disturbed when there is soil ecology going on, so to speak. So they are microscopic. This is a picture of the nematodes attacking a fungus gnat larvae. So if anyone knows what a fungus gnat is, you can imagine they're already so tiny. The larvae has to be pretty tiny. So these nematodes are even tinier. So you can actually see them, but you do definitely need a microscope. If you do purchase the nematodes, please make sure you are not going to put them on the dash of your car or leave them in a car. They are very fragile and tender. They are typically kept in the refrigerator to keep them fresh. When we come home, we want to keep them in the fridge inside that box or that container you've purchased them in until we're ready to inoculate the soils with them. We want to always read the package. They're very easy. Typically, I just put them in the watering can and kind of water the area. They are like little vampires. They want to get down into that soil. They are not going to attack us. They're not going to get on us. They're not going to get on our feet if we walk barefoot or if we're laying on the lawn. They're not going to impact anything else. They just want to eat those insects in the soil. So check them out. It's kind of cool. And then if we're looking to control moles with traps, I am going to share that working personally, just from personal experience, working with traps for managing moles is pretty challenging. I have caught them by accident when I was putting gopher traps out, but the trap on the far right, looks like Edward Scissorhand almost. I find that that's a very challenging trap to work with. And personally, as I shared, I do see moles as beneficial. So I don't typically try to eradicate or eliminate moles from the area. I'll use other tools such as the beneficial nematodes, and I will work with different types of repellents that I'll mention towards the end. Okay, gophers. For all of you, this is the moment we are waiting for. Let's talk about gophers, okay? Because let me tell you, they really can be problematic. But gophers are really smart. As I shared, they do create this crescent-shaped mound. They do tunnel deeper, so they're going to be tunneling down at about, I'd say, let's just say 6 to 10 inches, maybe even 6 to 12 inches is where their tunnels are. They have very extensive burrowing systems. They're quite complex. They have, like a pantry area. They have a latrine area. They even have an area for excessive water. So when water or rain starts to flood down and they haven't had a chance to close off that hole, they can actually route the water into areas that won't impact their dwelling areas of their burrowing system. And they do eat the plant root systems. So here's a picture that I thought was kind of cool from the sciencephoto.com. But this is kind of shows you how intricate their burrowing systems can be. So what is below could be a den or a pantry where they store food. I can also share that the way that the gopher habitat works is that there is going to be, they are not social critters. They will live by themselves, solitary life. The male, there's typically going to be a male gopher in his burrowing system, and it's going to be actually surrounded by female gophers in their own individual burrowing system. So it's almost like he has this like pack of females around that he can mate with. And he will mate with all of them. All of them will have their pups, and their nest, the females are going to nest much deeper, as far down as 6 feet is what I understand. So that is, so they're really protected from any type of above ground tilling and any other disturbance. The type of damage they do can be quite extensive. So as I was sharing with Jen and Charlotte prior, I've recently had to dig up a citrus, a very mature citrus that had a very substantial trunk system and then root system. And because there was some decline on the citrus, we were all very curious. And when I dug it up, there was a root system the size of my arm that had been chewed and gnawed by a gopher. So what happens is that the older gophers learn to nibble on the roots because they know those roots are going to grow, and this is a constant food source. Younger gophers have a tendency to just eat the whole root system, and that's when the plant dies, because they haven't learned yet. The younger gophers, I will share, are also a little bit easier to eliminate, but that's for a future conversation. Anyway, so I just wanted to share some pictures. I will also share, for those of you that are joining from Marin, the amazing Nanette Lordre. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce her last name, but she's very active in the Marin Master Gardeners and writes for the Marin IJ. So this is one of her roses. I just wanted to share that because it's just fun when you know it's someone's plant and not just a picture from, for instance, UCIPM. The other types of damage they can do is, you might have a whole line of shrubs or a hedgerow, or in this case, it's a orchard, and one tree just happens to die. Well, we want to get a little curious, and oftentimes it is going to be from gopher activity. We also see oftentimes how the gophers can go in and chew on irrigation by accident. It is a problem. So that's another reason why it's so important to get out there and to just have a look and monitor and make sure our irrigation is working well. And because I personally have gophers that I am, that I'm dealing with, we just want to make sure that we don't get too crazy. And just for some comic relief, if you haven't watched Caddyshack lately, I highly recommend it. It is funny. And we just, there is the fine line between tolerance and really going a little crazy. So just want to put it out there. So one of the best ways to manage gophers, and I will share, and Charlotte already said this, is if you don't have gophers now, you will have them, okay? Unless you are on some crazy rocky area or on an island where they've never made it, gophers are very abundant in our Bay Area. Okay, the weather is mild. In fact, this year, because our winter was so mild, we didn't really have a good frost. We didn't have a substantial rains. Gopher activity didn't really stop. So what we have here is, let's prevent them. Let's exclude them. We are going to work with gopher wire. Gopher wire might look like poultry wire or chicken wire, but it actually has a smaller hole. That hole is about 1/2 inch, whereas poultry wire is going to be closer to 1 inch. So gopher wire can be bought on rolls, and we can also buy 1/2-inch hardware cloth. Hardware cloth is just fencing material, and it is very relatively economical, and you can find that in the fencing department or at your local hardware store, or if you live near a feed store, it would be where the poultry wire is. But essentially what we want to do is line raised beds with it and make sure we are stapling it really well, because they can actually push on the wire over time because of the weight of the soil. They can actually bend that wire to gain access. I also know that gophers can chew through wood. So this raised bed has a very shallow, the wire is only coming up about 2 inches. I have the wire on my raised beds coming up almost to the top of the boards because of that. Gopher baskets you can purchase already made, where you just open them up and fold the bottoms, but you can also make your own gopher baskets with that 1/2-inch hardware cloth molded over a bucket upside down. That can work too when the retailers are sold out. Although buying the gopher baskets is very easy, and that's my preference. We always want to make sure with the gopher baskets, we do have about 6 to 12 inches of that wire lip above the surface, because the gophers actually are really good. They are burrowing, okay? They're moving that soil level up, and over time, they're very good at lifting it up and up and up until now they can have that soil over the edge of the basket, and they can get in and access the food. And if you have a very low edge on your raised beds, they've been known to do that too. Lots of different types of gopher traps on the market. So there are the Gophinator, the black box, black tunnel, cinch traps, Maccabees, Gopher Hawk, and there's another, the green box is actually very like the black box. So I have at least 3 of these. Well, actually, I've got 4 of these brands or these styles in my arsenal. And what we learn is to see what works really easy for us, what is easy to set, and what is easy to kind of to manage in the gopher burrowing system. So the picture on the left, that's my Maccabee Traps. It's one of my favorites. I will always put string on it. And then tether it to a stake. Sometimes I will put a zip tie. I will share that the gophers recently just chewed through this cord. Okay. You definitely want to make sure it is tethered, because if you can lose your traps, this happens. But we're going to make sure we have nice clearance, and we've gotten that trap down in that tunnel as deep as we can go. Another picture. This is off the UCIPM website. What I can share is that, again, he's got a Maccabee. Maccabees are very popular, but everyone has their specials. He has a situation here. This illustration from the UCIPM website is that they found the tunnel system and they put 2 traps in front to back. I've rarely been able to come upon the tunnel below ground. Only on a rare occasion when I was digging a hole for a new plant did I find it. So that's why I normally have this situation where I found that activity. I saw that crescent hole, that crescent mound. I dug a hole. I saw a nice clean tunnel. I cleared it out. I am wearing gloves. I know that these gophers are really smart, and I don't want them to have my scent on it necessarily. But then and I'll just share. Let me just see. Let me see. Okay, I'll talk about that in a second. Sorry. Okay, so something I could share is, because the traps don't always come with directions, the UCIPM has a YouTube channel, and they have just about every single instructions for just about any single trap that's on the market. So please have a look. This is going to be a really great resource for us. Okay, so very helpful. There's also the video on how to place the traps and how to identify an active tunnel, which I'm going to share some tips in a moment. But once we have the traps set, we want to protect them from other critters, such as our dogs or cats, other wildlife, children that might be in the area. So we really wanted to prevent unintended consequences. But something I know about gophers is that when there is an open tunnel, they can sense the air pressure. So they know when there is access, that their burrowing system is open, and they want to close it because they know their prey. They know that there's gopher snakes out there, or other critters that can come in and actually cause harm to them. So when when we've opened up the tunnel, it is not unusual and we have a trap in there, it's not unusual for the gopher to come back really within a couple minutes and trigger the trap and get captured, or push that trap out, which happens inadvertently. They're very smart. Or somehow bury that trap and close the tunnel. They want to close the access to the tunnel. So what I've learned is when we have something that has, if you see on the little wooden cover, that board I have a little bit of air or sunlight that can still peer through. Gophers don't see really well. And what happens inadvertently is they think that the tunnel opening is a little further out. So what I've heard is that they'll sometimes bypass the trap. They maybe won't notice it, and that's how they also get hit. The good news is, for anyone who's feeling a little icky about working with traps, is that it's very humane. It is pretty much an instant kill. It's either going to girdle them or it's going to pinch them. And because they are designed to be very humane. So I just want to throw that out there. So we might ask about gassers and other baits. Okay, so gassers, I'll share that gophers are really smart and they can close off any section of their burrow, any tunnel, fast as can be, faster than a blink of an eye. It's really remarkable. And so that's why when there's excessive rains, or they can close off their tunnel so they can prevent their entire burrowing system from getting flooded out. If there's some type of gas coming in, they're going to shut that section of the burrowing system down until that gas is dissipated, and then they'll come back. So we haven't really corrected the problem. We're just relieving access to this section temporarily. We can also talk about baits. Baits are going to be poison baits that are on the market. They are oftentimes more toxic than the rodenticides, the rat and mouse baits that are available these days. And they're quite hazardous to wildlife. Something else I can share is that gophers are really smart, and oftentimes they don't recognize these things as their natural food source. This goes for all those other remedies we've heard, like juicy fruit gum or whatever things we might put down into the tunnel. And I've seen them actually push these things out of the tunnel. When they're pushed out and we haven't noticed, such as a poison bait, anything else can come over and ingest it. And then that's a fatal situation for our pets or, wildlife. There are a number of repellents on the market, and they have a lot of different types of names. Gopher scram, mole scram, vole scram. Repellix is for moles and gophers, Mole Max, Gopher Max. Whatever the brands are, there are so many repellents out there. But a couple things I'd like to share is, one, these repellents are going to work. They need to be reapplied, sometimes multiple times. So you'll see the label will say reapply as needed. So oftentimes what happens is we'll have to apply these products a couple of times to get enough of the repellent in the area that's going to prevent the gophers, voles, or moles from crossing those sections of the burrowing system. They are not going to be long-term. They are going to offer temporary, repelling. There'll be a temporary deterrent. What I can share is, in the retail market, we do see that products that contain castor oil as one of the active ingredients has a tendency to be more effective or to be effective for a longer period of time. One thought is that because gophers and moles are not really good, they don't see as well. Moles don't see really at all, but gophers don't see as well. And they're really dependent on the whiskers and the fur on their face to navigate. And when there is something like a castor oil, which is viscous, and if it gets on their face, it kind of wrecks them. They're unable to take a shower and wash it off. Okay. And now they're not really able to use those very sensitive, nerve endings that are on their whiskers. Okay. So that's something to keep in mind. Charlotte, you have a question?
I will just about that, the castor oil. What about, does it work the same with the granular version, or do you recommend the liquid only?
That's a really great question. No, the granular is intended to actually get watered in. Okay. It will be a little more expensive because they have to dehydrate the castor oil. Some of the other products like the Repellix and the Gopher Scram, Voles Scram, they have different types of ingredients. So that's why they might be more cost effective. But I typically, if I'm going to go for a castor oil product as a repellent, I'm going to get already the liquid. It's going to be a couple bucks less expensive, and I have to water it in anyway. So it's just easy to hold, attached to the hose. I have a section of deer fence that I like to grow sweet peas on. I am unable to get Gopher Wire underneath that area. So as the sweet peas are growing, the minute I see gopher activity and gophers gnawing on my sweet peas, I will actually apply a castor oil based repellent. I will water it in really well, because remember, I want to really get it down about 8 inches. Okay. I will do that, watered in I'll apply it multiple times. And after usually about my 3rd application, so usually it's about once a week, before I really get nice saturation in the soil, I don't see any more activity, and it will get me through a good 6 or 9 months. So it lasts me my whole sweet pea season. And then after that, I don't mind. So again, I just want to say that the repellents work, but they're not going to be, they're not solving the problem. They're just temporary deterrents, and they do need to get reapplied, and they can be expensive. I just also want to share that we want to invite the birds of prey. Raptors are our varmints' natural enemies. So owls, specifically hawks, they need to feed their young a lot of small rodents when they are, when those little hatchlings are there. They're just very, very hungry. So owls are out on the hunt, and they need to feed their young about, what is it, 1 every 15 minutes. So that's a lot of rodents they can really take care of in on a property. And then other natural enemies are going to be gopher snakes, which I always welcome gopher snakes when I see them on my property. I have a little bit of the ick factor when I see a snake, but I am happy, and I've seen gopher snakes go into, the gopher holes. I can also say this awesome picture from the Presidio, a coyote hunting the gopher, reminds me a little bit of Charlotte's dog, who he thinks he's a coyote, and has captured a lot of gophers out at Golden Gate Park. But, gophers are coyote food. So we need to remember that. So when we can actually not put out people food for wildlife and really let them hunt what their natural prey, then they're doing us a service, and we're doing them a service. And then of course, I can't not but put a photo of my 2 pups. They are terriers, and they do an excellent job helping me identify active holes and active runs. So they actually help me cheat a little bit, and they will tell me when there's activity, and that's usually when we can be quite successful. So some online resources. The Our Water, Our World website has this really awesome fact sheet that will mention products that I talked about, different types of repellents, traps, and barriers that are available, as well as some of the tips that I shared with you this afternoon. And then the UCIPM website has a lot of information on gopher management, more information on proper identification, managing voles and moles as well. So those would be really great go-tos for you if you'd like to do a little bit more research on your own. And with that, I'd like to say thank you for joining us. Hopefully that was helpful and you all feel a little supported.
That was amazing. A lot of info and very well presented and easy to understand. So I appreciate all of that for sure. I know, like we were talking before the class, like, you know, I think we were thinking maybe you were waiting for some sort of magic, you know, this will do everything. And the reality is, you know, there's no one magic thing, but like definitely being aware of these different options is super critical, and also staying in front of it as much as possible so it doesn't get out of hand. I do want to echo the thing on nematodes or nematodes. They're incredibly effective. Side benefit for also raccoons, if you're having raccoons like rolling back your lawn or something, the nematodes will also help with that because they eat the grubs, and that's what the raccoons are going after. So that's a whole nother webinar, but I just wanted to bring that up. So I'll turn it over. I think Charlotte was going to answer some of the questions. We did have several questions, and so I'll just turn it over to you both and come in here and there, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, we did right at the end. We got a flurry of really, well, we had great questions throughout, but we got a lot to go through right now. One question that I did partially answer, and I think, and you also partially answered, was, are there any benefits to gophers besides being food for predators? Like, as you said, moles are somewhat beneficial too. Is there anything else besides being food?
Yeah, they're aerating our soil. They're doing a really great job keeping our soil, turning soil, aerating our soil. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
They provide great entertainment for our dogs too.
I was going to say that's pretty generous.
That coyote picture looks exactly like the way my dog pounces.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's why I thought it was so cute. I was like, I'm putting this on there.
This is a question that I actually had too. I have been told, and so has this person, that fish emulsion actually deters gophers. Have you heard that?
I've heard that. It's not scientifically proven. I do like to water in my beds. I do fertilize a lot with fish emulsion. I think again, because it's stinky, I think that they don't like the stinky things. And that's why you also notice on the plant list, you know, they won't, not that I advise this, but they'll stay away from mint, from lemon balm. They stay away from like things that have really strong fragrances. So I think that that's part of it. You know, that castor oil is got a pretty strong fragrance too. So I think that I would say it's not scientifically proven, and I can't say if fish emulsion really works, but I use it to fertilize my plants.
Feels like it's maybe not a cure for gophers, but it's not going to cause a ton of harm if you're already using it to fertilize your plants, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think dogs do like to eat fish fertilizer.
Yeah.
So if you have like a lawn and you're watering it, just watch out for your dogs might try to dig up your lawn to eat it. A great question is, what should I do with a dead gopher?
Oh, that is a great question. You can just put it back in that tunnel and just bury it.
That's easy. Does that continue to like repel any other gophers, or is it just returning it to the soil?
It's just going to return to the soil. I think that if there are other gophers that are, so the only time gophers live together is when there's a female with her pups, but after the pups are of age, she kicks them out. So there could be a situation where maybe one of the littles got hit and then she came along and maybe she'll just plug up she'll close off access to that section of the tunnel.
Okay. And 2 questions related about castor oil, just confirming that it doesn't harm plants and plant roots at all, and it is safe to put around vegetables.
That is correct. And we want to use a product that is registered for use. Sometimes people will just buy their own castor oil, but it's not easy to mix with water and to apply it. So I highly recommend just buy the product that's already, in the container or in the package and use it according to the directions, because it's formulated for easy application purposes.
Great. And will a gopher tunnel under a house or under a foundation? Do you know that question?
It seems, see, they really want to eat root systems. So I don't know
that seems pretty deep, don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
No.
maybe under like a shed or a studio, just in the event that shed or studio was built actually on an existing maybe burrow. I mean, here's the thing. It's like a gopher gets eliminated, and then now there's this like empty burrowing system. So when there's a new young pup that's got kicked out of the house, so to speak, it's out looking for a new burrow. And so it's like finds an abandoned burrowing system, and it's like a teenager moving into a mansion. They're just like, yeah, woo, we got it made. So I don't know if it would be a really I can't say anything about a gopher really burrowing under the foundation of a house. That would be hard for me to imagine, but maybe it's not impossible.
One thing that I just thought of when you were talking about this is that I will tell clients, like, well, they're seasonal, like they seem to be active sort of more seasonally, like they're definitely more dormant in the winter. And then they're also like super curious. So if we're doing a big project and we're planting a bunch of plants, a lot of times you might see a bunch more activity right then, when all of the plants are going in, and then it'll kind of like even out and things like that. So again, like when they were talking before about like what's sort of your range of like acceptance for the creature, maybe just realize if you are doing a big planting project, you might see a bit more activity, but over time it's going to be reasonable. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I absolutely would agree with that. And I think they're curious because they're like, ooh, new plants. I want to eat those roots.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
They're smart. And I'll tell you, I mean, I'm not really a big fan of eliminating animals. I mean, really, I'm not. But what I've learned over the years is that we don't have enough coyotes in the area to kind of keep them in check. So we have to keep the balance. That's another part of it, But I will share, you can tell when there's an older male bull because he's really smart and hard to catch. The youngings are a lot easier. They're not as smart. They're not as clever. They may be a little bit more naive or haven't had the experience of a trap. But the older gophers are really hard to catch successfully. And I think that's where I go back to that Bill Murray picture and
Caddyshack. You have to bring up Caddyshack when you're talking about gophers. 100%.
Yeah, it's the best. It's just so silly.
Yeah. Somebody just asked about, and I know the answer, and this is terrible, but is there enough, can gophers tunnel enough that you can see like a collapse in the garden? Yes, I've seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would imagine over time. Yeah. Especially if you,
Yeah, I've definitely seen it where it'll sink down in a certain place, and it's not.
It really depends on the structure of the soil. I'm always really fascinated that they can be so successful out in the avenues of San Francisco where it's so sandy, where that sand actually is holding together. I don't know. I'm always surprised.
Yeah, definitely. Are we, Charlotte, are we covering them all? I know there's a lot of questions.
Oh, here's another one that just came in. So I'm like trying to answer them and read them at the same time. There's a lot of coming in right now. What are your thoughts on these sonar stakes?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking. So I've heard some people, and these are professionals I work with, have had success with them. But word on the street among us professionals is that they're not as effective to maybe not being effective at all. It's one analogy is like you move in to a house and you're, right next to the train station, and you hear that train go by every day, or the BART station, and you hear that BART train go by. And then after a little bit of time, you don't even notice it anymore. So my understanding is that those types of tools, the gophers and moles become kind of used to. However, the way they're supposed to be used is you have 4 of them and you start in a square pattern. So you have one place at every corner. And of course you're looking down. I'm just going to show because I'm looking at you all, and you have 4. Okay. And it's like this. And then over the coming days and the weeks, you'll start to move them out and out and out. And then eventually you'll have, and maybe you have to add 2 more if you're making a rectangle, but that's my understanding of how they're supposed to be placed for success. Did that make sense? It's almost like we're stretching them out. And now we've got this zone in between, in the middle, that is we're not going to see any activity.
Yes, that does make sense. And I'll share one, maybe this can be the magic pill, is there does exist a plant called the Gopher Plant. It's called that, and it's a euphorbia, and it's labeled that. And euphorbias are related to poinsettias. So, when you break a poinsettia leaf, there's that milky sap that comes out. Okay, so every part of that plant is highly toxic. And so a lot of times we'll get in the Gopher Plant, and we'll have it like our veggie growers and stuff will grow it, because you can place it around. Some people swear by it, that it can repel gophers in, whatever 10-foot diameter or something. So it doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
Right?
And the castor bean plant, it's toxic. I know some people don't want to bring it in because they've got pets, but I have a friend in West Oakland who had massive gopher problems, and they would plant that plant. They've got lots of cats and dogs in the area. They've never, nothing ill has happened, but the castor bean plant, again, similar to the euphorbia plant, the root system is an amazing repellent. It is a tropical. So if we're in frosty areas, it'll die, but it'll be, a perennial in San Francisco and in tighter sections of Marin and the East Bay, where it doesn't get as frosty.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so thank you so much. This has been a lot of information, and I know we tried to address as many questions as possible. As you can see on the screen, both Suzanne and Charlotte's contact information, they share it, which is incredible. So we're all here to help you on your gardening journey, whether, you pass along questions to them, or you can email myself. We're here to support. Like I said, this is being recorded. The recording will be this Friday, which is the 4th, March 4th. And that's up on our website under Learn, and then gardening videos. And then it's also on our YouTube channel. So if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you'll get a notification once the recording is available. Thank you all for joining us. It's about time to go get dinner started or something, right? So I really appreciate both you, Charlotte and Suzanne. Again, it's always so informational and enjoyable to have you. And we look forward to seeing you all at the next class this Saturday. Yep, for pruning azaleas, camellias, and rhododendrons. So thanks so much, and have a wonderful Wednesday evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.